Hey yo, it's me, Lucky Bastard. And today I'm gonna talk about ping, latency, packet loss, all that kind of stuff. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a network technician, so, you know, I'm not really on the technical side of things, but I've played From Software games for over 10 years, and this right there was the laggiest parry that I've ever landed. Obviously I was not able to recreate this, I tried again, but well. So I decided to instead use my Flaming Strike against him. And you might know that the Flaming Strike has somewhat of a true combo depending on when your target gets hit by the flames. And so in this moment it should have definitely comboed, but latency is also able to just save you from true combos. This is not supposed to be an apologetic video where I just try to blame all my losses on lag or something, but rather a pseudo-scientific analysis of what's happening on the screen, and to give people an understanding of the different types of lag and stuff. So here you see me checking my recent players on Steam, and you see those players that I just fought against were Chinese. So this calls for another disclaimer. I'm obviously not trying to be hostile towards players from different countries or different regions around the world. And I'm also not trying to be hostile towards people who use, in quotes, worse internet than me. Maybe they have to use a Wi-Fi connection, or maybe they, I don't know, just don't have as good internet service providers or whatever in their area. But this is not what this video is about. It's about witnessing the goofiness of the From Software netcode. I'm sure you will find a lot of these clips very funny. For me, maybe they are a little traumatic to relive, but hey, you do everything for the views, right? Look at this guy, for example. He just received lethal damage and now he's in this state between life and death. So we have a moment to talk about why this is happening in the first place. Every From Software game connection is on a peer-to-peer base, or in more scientific terms, potato to potato. Which means that my signal has to travel all the way to China, and their signal has to travel all the way back from China to Austria, which is this tiny little place on the map where I live. So obviously this can take a while, sometimes longer than normal, because obviously there's tons of factors to consider when talking about the connection between two continents. My signal is traveling across half the globe basically, and I'm checking again in my recent players, and you see those players, they also were from China. Again, I'm not gonna show every single player's location or whatever, but you can guess most of them are probably far away from me, and that's why they're so latent. Peer-to-peer connection means basically that my PC is directly connecting to the PC of my opponent, or basically everyone in this world. The servers are only involved for the matchmaking process. Look at this guy in the bushes, he's hilarious. So logically this means the latency is also always both-sided, so if someone's super latent for me, I'm also going to be super latent for them. And now there's also different dimensions of latency, which is mostly ping related. There's also the so-called lag, which is mostly caused by unstable connections or also very bad download and upload rate. This then leads to so-called packet loss, which can cause even more extreme latency between, for example, your hit and your opponent receiving the hit, or sometimes can simply swallow a hit. And in very extreme cases, a whole person can get swallowed, like in the previous clip where I couldn't even see him, and he just, well, killed me pretty easily, obviously. So in this clip I was waiting for a blue in the beginning because this guy already summoned a blue, and then I swapped to the greatsword and he kinda was scared by my swap or something and started attacking me. So I also started attacking him, and as you see, this guy has a ton of latency. And the thing this guy does is kind of abusing his latency by always drinking his crimson flasks after getting hit. So even if I land another hit on him, if he can heal before that hit registers, he will not get hit down to 0 HP and therefore he will survive. But obviously he cannot do this forever, and he's not really, well, threatening me in any way. I'm pretty much only threatening him. But I'm also getting a little bored of this running game, so I'm trying to combo him if possible. And there he goes. Now again, I'm not blaming anyone for purposely abusing lag, because on the one hand the lag has always been a staple of From Software games, unfortunately, and on the other hand it's always both-sided, so as laggy as they are for me, as laggy I am for them. Aside from desync, that can also happen pretty one-sided, like when I don't see the other player at all. In duels, where both players kind of know what they're doing, it can be very tedious because it prevents, in quotes, the better player from winning sometimes. I mean, the person who can adapt to the lag better is in this case more in advantage than the person who maybe knows their timings best, because my timings for a good connection are not going to work on a latent connection. So for example, my roll catch attempts are pretty fruitless. My timings are just a bit off because they're, you know, reaching him a little bit later than they should. And vice versa, his hits are reaching me on my screen a little bit too early, because in fact he already started this hit earlier than I am seeing his animation, and so his hit confirm is already on the way while I don't even see that I'm being hit yet. So this can be very frustrating if you fight on a more elevated skill level like this guy. And this hit, for example, you saw the so-called phantom range, which basically means that when he hit, I was still in range, and even though on my screen when the hit kinda hit me I was already out of his range, it doesn't matter, I still got a confirmed hit from his side. This in turn also means that it's very hard to avoid trades, because almost always during my hit animation he will be also in his hit animation, and in the end we will just both hit each other all the time. And it's almost impossible to hit him before his hits come out, so to avoid the trade, even though I was trying desperately. In this clip we see another example of some player who just did not show up on my screen at all. He's basically a ghost for me, and he's casting this wave of gold out of nothingness. I can lock on to him, which is funny, then I see his health bar, but that's basically all I can see from him aside from his waves of gold. Now the question kind of becomes, why did From Software not find a way to fix this in all those years? I mean, Dark Souls 1 came out more than 10 years ago, and even before that Demon Souls. And these issues have been there from the first second, so latency and those PvP related issues have always plagued Souls players from the very beginning. So why isn't there a way to fix that in, you know, any technical sense? And I'm not claiming to have the answer to this question, but there have been a lot of people who thought about this, and even people who wrote their own netcode, like the Sekiro Online mod or the Seamless Co-op mod by Luke Huey. So why can't FromSoft fix it themselves? To be honest, I think they could. It's just a matter of focusing on PvP related issues and actually trying to fix them. Unfortunately for us, PvP has never been the main focus of the developer, and even though it's in all of those games, it has never been perfected. Like some fighting games that are completely made exclusively for PvP, they obviously have some mechanics to prevent extreme lag from occurring. A so-called ping filter is in place there usually, which means that you only connect to people who have a certain ping or like below a certain ping to you, and in a peer-to-peer environment this is pretty individual. Because, as I said, it depends on the distance between you and your opponent, it depends on basically the path that your signal needs to travel from your PC to your opponent's PC and vice versa. And so this ping filter would have to kind of check every single connection during the matchmaking process and just select if your opponent is even worth connecting to from your momentary perspective, like if your ping is good enough to have a decent connection or not. I've heard a lot of different statements from members of the Souls community about this issue. For example, G9 was saying that he thinks that a ping filter would not work well because the player base is already split up in so many fragments, like players playing on different levels and stuff. and therefore the ping filter would only split up the player base even more. And therefore he's advocating for a lower max level, around maybe level 200, for basically everyone to meet at, because the levels above 200 are kinda, well, I don't want to say useless, but let's just say they take pretty much every fun out of build creation and make PvE pretty much trivial, to say the very least. I personally agree to this proposal, but on the other hand, this statement that the ping filter would split the player base, I kinda don't understand. Because the ping filter would individually affect every player and the connections that they could have or could not have. So it's not like I am only connecting to players with a certain ping, and if I have a high ping then I connect to people with a high ping. No, hopefully you will have a low ping to some players, and those players you will be able to connect to, and you will have a high ping towards other players, and those you will just not be able to connect to. And in my opinion, those are not worth connecting to anyway. I don't want those super laggy matches. Talking about super laggy matches, this guy I'm dueling with right now, he's also Chinese. I checked his profile, and in this case I have actually a pretty decent connection to him. There's some latency, but it's definitely not unplayable. So really props to this guy for having very good Chinese internet, I guess. So in the next clip I'm showing a different situation where I have a couple people in this world who I have a pretty decent connection to. I mean, on PC there is always a little bit of latency because of the easy anti-cheat. It just adds some latency to every single connection in the game, in turn for protecting you from, you know, cheats and, in the worst case, RCE exploits. Dark Souls 3 players will know what I'm talking about. But what I was about to say, in this world there is one guy who is extremely latent to me, and all the other guys are fine. Like the host, you see that, I can just backstab him easily. But this guy, with the spiky club, he is truly a laggard from my perspective. Not to make things personal, but he might really have pretty bad internet and not just a huge distance to me. Even though I don't have any issues fighting the host, this guy always interferes, and I can never really see what he's actually doing. Like now, I just got staggered from nothing. I have no idea what he even did. I didn't take any damage, but I got staggered. And I'm really carefully approaching this guy. I mean, I want him out of the way before I really focus on the host. And I'm a couple times trying to backstab him, but I think this is pretty hopeless. So now I'm rather just carefully using some range attacks like the R2 thrust from the claymore. And as the host runs away, there is a blue spawning in, so I'll also take this guy out before I focus on the host. And this is funny, I'm kinda missing him twice. I hit once right to his right and once right to his left. But well, this guy is not really dangerous, he's just spamming double daggers. And now it's time for the host. And as you see, the host's connection is perfectly fine. I hit him and he gets hit immediately, pretty much. So this is kind of a situation where the ping filter would maybe have issues because the host has a decent connection to me, but one of his phantoms has not. And now we're going back to some extreme latency. I obviously kept the most extreme examples for the end. You always need to finish with a bang. And that's literally what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to finish him with a fireball. And I'm displaying a counter for you, so you see how much time it takes from the frame that my fireball hit him, approximately, till the frame where he actually takes the damage. And in case of the second guy, it's even more impressive, in quotes. I started the counter at the hit where I'm extremely sure that I should have hit him. And I will hit him a couple more times until he actually takes the damage. He still did not take any of it. There was another hit, there was another hit. And now he took the damage, and it was like all of my hits combined, I guess, or like almost the damage from all those hits together. Anyway, latency sometimes can be really extreme in Elden Ring, more extreme than in any other Forms of game, or at least more extreme than I have witnessed it in any other Forms of game myself so far. Now this is pure comedy, look at that. It took 5 backstab attempts before he even noticed me. And now it's time for the most overpowered form of latency, or desync. I'm not gonna spoiler what's going to happen there, but just know that you're about to witness true greatness in Elden Ring. I mean, so far everything seems kinda okay. I'm just throwing fireballs at those guys and, well, they take my damage and everything is fine. There is no notable latency in this fight yet. The opposite is the case rather, because you just saw that I was able to interrupt his attack with mine, which was not the case if you remember this duel with this dual host at the main academy gate who was using Zweihänder, actual German pronunciation there. I was forced to trade with him because our hits would not register in time for the other player, basically. So yeah, I'm having a pretty good 2v1 with those guys. An interesting fight, pretty balanced. We're all giving each other hell. And so far it's not decided who is going to win this yet. And I'm making it quite close at times, so are they. But then something truly divine happens. Oh my god, it's him. It's the teleporting katana man himself. He just teleports into my face and I'm panicking. I'm panicking like never before. I've never seen such power. The power level is spiking in front of me. I can feel the energy in the air and, well, I cannot hold my own against this kind of power. He's the chosen one. He's the redeemer. So anyway, thank you everybody for watching. If you made it this far into the video, consider leaving a like or subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet. Thank you very much again. I'm Lucky Bastard. This music was made by myself as always, except this time it's a pretty old band of mine that unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. But I hope you also like that, and see you next time. Have a good one.